Today I'm also going to review A Kingdom of Dreams by Judith McNaught. Well, this is funny. Apparently I read the second book in this interconnected series. I thought I read the first book for some reason. This says that this is the second book, so that's, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to tell you up front that I don't necessarily recommend this unless you really like historical romance fiction. That's the genre. Why am I so bad with genres? I'm pretty sure this is historical romance. That's what you would call it. Maybe kind of like my first foray into it, if you will. I don't know what you want to call it. Apparently this is... Well, no, so this is weird. It says book 2 on the Kindle Unlimited. This book is on Kindle Unlimited, so it is free if you want to read it, if you have Kindle Unlimited. But then in the order on here, it says that it's the first one. So, I don't know. Before we get into the actual discussing of this book though, I will say her writing's really good, but a couple of content things to be aware of is this is in modern day she's 17 and he's I think in his 30s. So not only an age gap, but an illegal age gap. And then you have kind of dubious or non-consent, which I don't really like reading about. Don't get me wrong, they do reiterate over and over again in the book how he's much nicer and he's treating her much better than she probably would normally get treated. But it's still uncomfortable. It was just a weird story. Again, this is an older book, not that old, but I just don't know if historical romance is for me. I don't know if they're all like this though, so if they aren't, I guess someone tell me. I was just kind of, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting with this. I guess it obviously makes sense you're in medieval wartime, so those things are normal. If anything, the main character, Jenny, which I do not like her name. I love her character, but I do not like her name. She's technically old to not be married back in this time period. However, it's still I don't know. I think the reason, so there's also abuse, obviously. Of course that's in there. Anyway, I know this is fiction and it's part of the era they're living in. It's just not really my favorite. And I think the biggest reason why it's not my favorite is because the hero, the main male character, is the one doing a lot of it. So it's kind of how am I supposed to like you? I don't like you very much. Talking about the actual story though, you have Jenny, who is a Scottish lord's daughter, but he remarried and has these other sons. A couple of them have died. He basically wants them to take over, even though they're not his. Jenny technically should be the heir, but he sees her as a disappointment, has basically sent her to a convent where she is learning to become a nun, and her sister, who's her half-sister, is also in the mix there. Brenna, I think her name is Brenna. I like both the girls. Brenna definitely grew on me, but yeah, basically they're in the wrong place, wrong time, and this... Sorry, now I'm getting distracted by a bird, and he's carrying these sticks, I think for his nest, in his mouth, and he looks so funny right now. He's just kind of bobbing. Anyway, basically... They are in the wrong place, wrong time. The other side of the war, the English, these two brothers who lead this group for King Henry, the one brother, who's not the main male character, basically abducts them, kidnaps them, and takes them to the other brother, Royce, who is the leader. He's called the wolf. Scary, Anyway, they are being used as pawns. But ultimately what happens is Jenny ends up being forced to wed Royce to basically make both the Scottish and the English sides happy and at peace. However, there's plotting on both sides to basically ruin that too. It's just very uncomfortable in the sense that you're watching Jenny be mistreated so poorly because of the time, by literally every single man around her, not just Royce. So that was really disappointing to read, if I'm being honest. It's just not my favorite. I also think the writing is really good, and what I liked about it is it was third person, but a lot of jumping around with points of view, but I actually don't think people like that. I love that. I think it's very entertaining when it goes from like person to person and it's quick and fast like that, but I think a lot of people find it just confusing and not that great. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I did like that about the book though. I thought her writing was really good. Again, I felt like I was there with her. So that was nice. And I did really like Jenny. I loved her. I think a lot of times female main characters get like shown as reckless, and a lot of Jenny's behavior is reckless. But there was a difference in her character where she was very much, it was more on the courageous side. Like she kind of knew she was in a position where she was going to be most likely hurt or killed. And she was kind of like, I'm not going down, I'm not going to get hurt, I'm not going to get killed without putting up a fight, I won't go easily. So that was a little bit different for me, and I did really like that about her character. And it comes into that too a little bit later. She's more like naive and innocent, but what happens with her is nice in terms of like character development, because she kind of becomes like sneaky and clever, which I really liked. So both the girls, their stories and the way they were as characters, I loved that. Almost everything else was not my favorite outside of like the world, the plot, and the development of the story. But like I said, pretty much every man in this book was horrible except for her one half brother William, who is like half decent, if you can say that even. Like he's definitely far and wide better than all the others, but he's still not doing a lot. Like I said, I haven't read very many historical romances, so I don't know how well I can judge them. I do think this is written very well, so if you like them, this could be a good book for you, except for if you don't like the third person point of view, like jumping around a lot. This is essentially two Scottish sisters getting kidnapped by the English during war times and then forced marriage to repair or amend the mess that's been made, even though none of that is any of the women's fault. Anyway, it's interesting. It's very, I feel like that's probably fairly accurate for, like the way she is being treated is inaccurate in the sense that she is actually being treated nicer than she probably would have been if it were real, but it's still horrible. The other thing with this book is that it is like fast paced. It's interesting. The plot is different than like a modern romance, in my opinion. It didn't feel quite as formulaic, which I liked. I did feel like I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. Being myself, I was still hoping for a happily ever after. And the only other thing that I did not like about this book is, I've mentioned this before, is I do not like when animals needlessly die. I'm not going to say which one or what animal or what happened, but it did bother me. I do not understand why that has to happen when it like doesn't actually, I don't know, I guess in a small incremental way it kind of moved the plot along and was important in like a little sort of, I don't know, just wasn't great. Don't think I will ever like that. It always bothers me. So that just is what it is. Not really the author's fault. She did a really good job of writing it. So there's that. And like I said, it's written really well. I think it's unique in terms of like plot points and where the story goes and how it's written. It's just not really for me. So if you like historical romance and you like reading like a fast-paced one, I think you would like this. This just wasn't my favorite. So I won't be continuing with this like interconnected series. I do think that from what I saw after, I think it's called Whitney, My Love, is like the more popular one that she's written. So maybe that one's better. I'm not really sure. I just don't think I'll be continuing with this. So this is just my opinion on her one book, A Kingdom of Dreams by Judith McNaught. Just wasn't my favorite. So I'm not really recommending this one to you guys. If you want to see my notes or like very specific plot points and you want the spoiler aspect of this, I do have that linked below. And I think as far as reviews go, I have kind of caught up, sort of. I just finished reading Bloodmarked by Tracy Dion, so I should be reviewing that and Legendborn together really soon, which I'm really excited about. But as far as historical romance goes, I kind of figured I wouldn't be overly into this genre, so you might see less of that from me. I'm also excited because I am going to do kind of like a library vlog. A library vlog. I got my first library card and first library book, and all in Portugal, and an English book in the English foreign language section of the library, which is very small. It's like 2 bookshelves, 2 half bookshelves, so like 1 bookshelf. I should be doing that soon, so I'm very excited. This should be it kind of for once I do Legendborn and Bloodmarked. Should be kind of it for standalone book reviews for a little bit, because I have to catch up. I've read some other books, I guess, but yeah. Anyway, it's just kind of the end of the marathon of book reviews, and I'm excited to get into sharing other content, I guess is my point. And I hope you guys have a nice day. I'll see you in the next one.